The first time my daughter called me by my first name, I thought I'd misheard her. It was a quiet Sunday afternoon, the kind that smells like lemon cleaner and leftover coffee. The clock above my stove ticked louder than usual, each second landing heavy in the silence. I was drying a plate, my hands still damp, when she said it soft, almost casual, like she was testing how it felt in her mouth. "Linda," she said. "Not Mom. Not Mama. Just Linda." I remember turning slowly, the plate still in my hands, my heart doing something strange and uneven in my chest. She didn't look up from her phone. Her voice had no sharp edge to it, no anger. That's what made it worse. It was as if she'd already crossed a bridge I didn't know existed. I laughed it off that day. Or at least I tried to. I told myself teenagers experiment with distance the way toddlers experiment with boundaries. I told myself it was nothing. But deep down, something had already begun to crack. Before all of that, before the divorce, before the quiet rewrote our home, my life had been ordinary in the most comforting way. I was married to David for 18 years. We weren't perfect, but we were predictable. We knew each other's routines, each other's silences. He liked his eggs soft. I liked mine a little burnt. On Friday nights, we ordered takeout and watched reruns of old sitcoms, the laugh tracks filling the spaces we didn't. Our daughter, Emily, was the center of everything. She was the kind of child who asked thoughtful questions too young and learned disappointment too early. When she was small, she used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms, her hair smelling like baby shampoo and sleep. She'd press her forehead against my collarbone and whisper, "You're my safe place, Mom." Those words stayed with me long after she stopped saying them. I worked as a receptionist at a dental office, nothing glamorous, but steady. I liked knowing the names of the patients, remembering who needed extra numbing and who was afraid of the drill. David worked in logistics, always tired, always promising things would slow down after the next quarter. They never did. The divorce didn't come from a single explosion. It came from years of small, quiet disappointments. Missed dinners. Conversations that turned into logistics. Nights where we lay side by side, backs facing each other, pretending sleep was the same as peace. When we finally sat Emily down at the kitchen table and told her we were separating, she didn't cry. She just nodded, her eyes fixed on the wood grain like she was memorizing it. "Where will I live?" she asked. That was the first question. Practical. Careful. So much like her. "She'll stay with me," I said, reaching for her hand. David didn't argue. He squeezed her shoulder and said we'd make it work. For a while, we did. At least, I thought we did. Emily was 14 when David moved out. She stayed with me in the house she'd grown up in, the one with the creaky third stair and the dent in the hallway wall from when she'd thrown a ball indoors, despite being told not to. David moved into an apartment across town and took her every other weekend. At first, nothing seemed wrong. Emily still talked to me about school, about the girl in her math class who chewed too loudly, about her dreams of studying psychology someday. We cooked dinner together, our elbows bumping in the narrow kitchen. She still called me Mom. But change doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it slips in quietly, wearing familiar clothes. It started with shorter answers. A shrug instead of a story. Her phone becoming a wall between us. When I asked how her weekend with her father had gone, she'd say, "Fine," and disappear into her room. I told myself this was normal. Teenagers pull away. Every parenting book says so. I repeated those words to myself like a prayer. Still, there were moments that didn't sit right. Once, I found her standing in the hallway, staring at an old family photo on the wall, David, me, and her at the beach, all sunburned and smiling. When she noticed me, she flinched, like she'd been caught doing something wrong. "What?" I asked gently. "Nothing," she said, too quickly. "Just remembering." Another time, she asked me out of nowhere why I'd made her father leave. I was sitting on the couch folding laundry when she said it. My hands froze mid-fold. "I didn't make him leave," I said carefully. "We both decided it was best." She didn't respond. She just nodded, but there was something in her eyes, something hardened, something already decided. That night, I lay awake listening to the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of a car passing outside. I replayed her question over and over, wondering where it had come from. I wanted to ask her. I wanted to sit her down and say, "Tell me what you're thinking. Tell me what you've heard." But fear held me back. Fear of pushing too hard. Fear of hearing something I wasn't ready to face. So I stayed quiet. And in that quiet, something else grew. The distance between us widened slowly, like a crack in ice, thin at first, easy to ignore. Until one day, she stopped calling me mom altogether. That Sunday afternoon, when she called me Linda, it wasn't a mistake. It was a choice. I didn't know it yet, but someone had been teaching her that choice. Feeding her a story where I was no longer the safe place, just a name. And the most painful part? It wasn't her father doing the telling. After that Sunday, the word Linda lingered in the air between us like smoke you couldn't quite wave away. I didn't correct her. Not because it didn't hurt, but because I didn't want to give it power. I told myself if I stayed steady, if I remained exactly who I'd always been, she would come back around. Children circle back, don't they? That's what people say. Like tides. So I kept cooking dinner at 6. Kept folding her laundry the way she liked, shirts inside out, jeans stacked neatly. I still knocked before entering her room. Still asked if she wanted tea when I made mine. Chamomile for me, honey and lemon for her. Sometimes she said yes. Most times she didn't answer at all. Our house began to feel different. Not emptier, just tighter. Like the walls were listening. Mornings became especially quiet. She stopped sitting at the kitchen table and started eating toast standing up, one shoe already on, backpack slung low on her shoulder. She avoided eye contact the way people avoid mirrors when they're not ready to look at themselves. "Your lunch is in the fridge," I'd say. I know, she'd reply, already halfway out the door. The front door would close with a soft click, and I'd stand there for a second too long, holding my coffee mug, staring at the space she'd just vacated. It was always in those moments, those ordinary, unremarkable moments, that the ache felt sharpest. David noticed it too. "She's just growing up," he told me over the phone one evening. His voice came through slightly distorted, like it always did. "You worry too much." I wanted to believe him. Maybe I needed to. "She doesn't call me mom anymore," I said quietly. There was a pause. Just a breath too long. "Teenagers go through phases," he said. "Don't take it personally." I stared at the wall while he spoke. The paint near the corner was chipped, something I'd meant to fix for years. Funny how you notice small flaws when the big ones are too heavy to hold. "I'm not," I lied. After we hung up, I sat on the couch and let the silence settle around me. The ticking clock. The hum of the heater. The distant bark of a neighbor's dog. Everything sounded louder when Emily wasn't speaking to me. The first real clue came on a Wednesday afternoon. I'd left work early because of a migraine, the kind that sits behind your eyes and makes light feel like an insult. When I pulled into the driveway, I noticed David's car already there. That was unusual. He usually picked Emily up on Fridays, not midweek. I sat in my car for a moment, engine still running, watching the front door like it might tell me something before I went inside. I turned the engine off and stepped out. Their voices reached me before I opened the door. David's low and steady. Emily's sharper than usual, edged with something I didn't recognize. "I just don't understand why she lies about it," Emily said. My hand froze on the doorknob. "Your mother doesn't always see herself clearly," David replied. That's all I'll say. I didn't go in right away. I stood there, keys digging into my palm, my heart thudding so hard I was afraid they'd hear it. Lies about what? When I finally opened the door, their conversation stopped abruptly. Emily's back stiffened. David turned, surprise flickering across his face. "Oh, hey," he said. "Didn't know you'd be home." I wasn't feeling well, I replied, forcing my voice to stay even. "What's going on?" Emily didn't answer. She grabbed her jacket and headed toward the hallway. "I'm going to my room," she said, not looking at either of us. The door closed behind her with a quiet finality. David cleared his throat. "She had a rough day at school. I just stopped by to check on her." "That's kind of you," I said. The words tasted strange. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "You know how she is." I watched him leave 10 minutes later, the space he occupied cooling almost instantly. When his car pulled away, I went to Emily's door and knocked softly. "Emily?" No response. I knocked again. "I'm home if you need anything." Silence. That night, she didn't come down for dinner. I left a plate covered with foil in the fridge and sat alone at the table, pushing rice around my plate until it went cold. I tried to tell myself this was just another phase, another adjustment. But something inside me had shifted. The next few weeks brought more moments like that. Half-finished sentences that stopped when I entered a room. Text messages she'd quickly swipe away when I glanced in her direction. A guardedness that felt deliberate, practiced. Once, while doing laundry, I found a folded piece of paper in her jeans pocket. I hesitated before opening it. I didn't want to be that kind of mother. But curiosity won. It was a handwritten note. Neat, careful letters. "You deserve to know the truth." No signature. No explanation. I stood there in the laundry room, the dryer buzzing softly behind me, holding that note like it might burn me. My reflection stared back from the washer's glass door, eyes tired, mouth drawn thin. That night, I dreamed I was calling Emily's name in a crowded room, my voice swallowed by noise. She was there somewhere, I could feel it, but every time I reached for her, she slipped further away. I woke with my heart racing and a certainty settling deep in my bones. Someone was talking to my daughter. Someone was telling her a story about me. And whatever that story was, it was changing the way she saw her own mother. I just didn't know yet who was doing the telling or why. The note stayed in my pocket for days. I took it out at red lights. I unfolded it while standing in line at the grocery store. I smoothed the crease with my thumb late at night, sitting on the edge of my bed, wondering how many times it had been folded before it ever reached me. It felt heavier than a piece of paper should. "You deserve to know the truth." I kept asking myself the same question, whose truth? I didn't show it to David. I didn't mention it to Emily. I told myself I was waiting for the right moment, but if I was honest, I was afraid. Afraid that once the truth was spoken out loud, there would be no going back to the life I thought I still had. The first crack widened on a Friday evening. Emily was getting ready to go out, just a small group of friends, she'd said, a movie and fries afterward. She stood in front of the hallway mirror, adjusting her hair with careful movements, her reflection serious in a way that didn't match her age. "You look nice," I said, leaning against the doorway. She didn't thank me. She didn't look at me either. "Your dad's picking me up," she said. "Oh," I replied. "I thought you were meeting them there." She shrugged. Plans changed. I watched her lace up her shoes, my eyes catching on the tiny scar on her ankle from when she'd fallen off her bike years ago. I'd been the one to clean that wound, to kiss it better. "Be home by 10, I said. She straightened, finally meeting my eyes. There was something defiant there, something rehearsed. "Dad says I don't have to be," she replied. "He said I'm old enough to decide for myself." I felt my chest tighten. "We agreed on 10, Emily." "Well," she said, slipping her jacket on, "maybe you shouldn't make agreements you can't keep." The words landed hard. "Emily," I began, but she was already heading toward the door. As it closed behind her, I stood there, my mouth still open, the rest of the sentence lost somewhere between us. I pressed my hand against the door, feeling the cool wood under my palm, as if it might ground me. That night, she came home close to midnight. I was sitting on the couch with the lights off, a lamp in the corner casting long shadows across the room. I didn't want to ambush her, but I couldn't pretend everything was fine anymore. "You're late," I said softly when she walked in. She paused, keys still in her hand. "Dad said it was okay." I took a breath. "I'm your mother, Emily." She turned to face me fully then, her eyes flashing. "No," she said. "You're just the person I live with." The words felt like a slap. "Why are you doing this?" I asked. My voice cracked despite my best effort to keep it steady. "What happened? Talk to me." She laughed once, short and bitter. "You really don't know, do you?" "Know what?" I asked. She shook her head. "Forget it. You wouldn't tell the truth anyway." She went to her room and closed the door, this time louder than usual. I didn't follow her. I sat there in the dim light, my hands folded in my lap, staring at nothing. My heart hurt in a way that felt physical, like something was pressing on it from the inside. The next morning, I called in sick to work. I needed answers. I started with David. We met at a small cafe halfway between our houses, the kind with mismatched chairs and the smell of burnt espresso lingering in the air. He was already there when I arrived, stirring his coffee absent-mindedly. "What's going on?" I asked as soon as I sat down. He looked up, feigning surprise. "What do you mean?" "Emily," I said. "She's angry. She's distant. She says I lie. I need to know what you've been telling her." His jaw tightened slightly. "Just enough to notice." "I haven't told her anything she doesn't deserve to know," he said. "That's not an answer," I replied. He leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms. "She's old enough to understand that our marriage didn't end because of nothing." "I never said it did," I said. "But whatever you're implying, it's hurting her." He sighed, shaking his head like I was being unreasonable. "You always want to control the narrative, Linda." There it was again. My name. Cold. Distant. "I want the truth," I said. "All of it." He met my gaze, his eyes steady. "Then maybe you should tell her about the money." My stomach dropped. "What money?" He didn't answer right away. He took a slow sip of his coffee, buying himself time. "The savings," he said finally. "The account you drained before we separated." I stared at him. "That's not what happened." "Isn't it?" he replied calmly. "Because that's not how it looks to her." Something clicked then, not fully, but enough to send a chill down my spine. "Who told her that?" I asked. He hesitated. Just for a moment. "I'm not the only adult she talks to," he said. When I got home, I went straight to my bedroom and pulled out the old folder from the back of my closet, the one with bank statements and legal documents from the divorce. I spread everything out on the bed, my hands shaking as I flipped through pages. The truth was there, in black and white. The money I'd withdrawn had gone toward paying off joint debt, credit cards in his name, medical bills we'd both signed for. It was all documented. I'd never hidden it. So why did my daughter believe I had? That evening, as I sat surrounded by papers, the answer began to take shape in my mind, unwelcome, heavy, and sharp with betrayal. There was only one person who had access to both Emily and those details. And she wasn't my ex-husband. Her name came to me slowly, like a bruise you don't notice until you press on it. Margaret. My mother-in-law. Emily's grandmother. She had always been a presence in our lives, quiet but constant, like a piece of furniture you never move because it's always been there. Margaret lived alone in a small house just 15 minutes away. She liked things orderly. Predictable. She believed in family loyalty the way some people believe in religion. When David and I divorced, she never took sides, at least, not openly. She still invited me to holiday dinners. Still sent birthday cards with careful handwriting and no emotion behind the words. But she had always adored Emily. And Emily, in turn, trusted her completely. The realization made my chest tighten. That night, I didn't sleep much. I lay awake listening to the house settle, the pipes creaking softly, the wind brushing against the windows. Every memory of Margaret replayed itself in a new light, her tight smile when I announced the separation, her careful questions about finances, her lingering hugs with Emily. In the morning, I made a decision. I drove to her house. The sky was overcast, the kind of dull gray that makes everything look flatter than it really is. Margaret's house was immaculate, as always, the lawn trimmed, the porch swept, a single potted plant by the door. She answered after the second knock. "Linda," she said, surprise flickering briefly across her face before she composed herself. "What a nice surprise. May I come in?" I asked. She hesitated, then stepped aside. The house smelled faintly of lavender and furniture polish. Everything was in its place, nothing personal on display, no clutter to suggest a life lived loudly. We sat at the kitchen table, the same one where I'd once watched Emily color while Margaret corrected her grip on the crayon. "I'll get us some tea," she said, already standing. "No," I replied gently. "I won't stay long." She sat back down, her hands folded neatly in front of her. "What's this about?" I took a breath. "What have you been telling Emily about me?" Her eyes narrowed slightly. "Whatever do you mean?" "You know exactly what I mean," I said. My voice surprised me with its steadiness. She believes I lied. That I took money. That I forced her father out. Margaret pursed her lips. Children deserve the truth. The truth or your version of it? I asked. She leaned forward then, her expression hardening. I told her what I saw. What I've always seen. And what's that? I asked. A woman who always wanted more, she replied coolly. More control. More security. You never appreciated my son. The words stung, but I'd expected them. I never stole from him, I said. And I never lied to Emily. She waved a hand dismissively. You may believe that. Something in me snapped, not loudly, not dramatically. Just a quiet, final break. You had no right, I said. No right to poison my daughter against me. Margaret straightened. I didn't poison her. I protected her. From what? I asked. Me? She didn't answer. Her silence was answer enough. When I left, my hands were shaking so badly I had to sit in my car for several minutes before driving. The betrayal cut deeper than I'd expected, not because I loved Margaret, but because she'd used her position so carefully, so strategically. She hadn't yelled. She hadn't accused me outright. She'd planted seeds. That evening, I sat Emily down. Not in the living room. Not at the kitchen table. I chose her bedroom, the space she guarded most fiercely. I knocked and waited. What? She said. Please, I said. Just 5 minutes. She hesitated, then nodded. I sat on the edge of her bed, careful not to crowd her. She stood by the window, arms crossed. I know someone's been telling you things about me, I said. Things that aren't true. She laughed softly. Let me guess. Grandma lied. I flinched. So you admit she's been talking to you? She's been honest, Emily replied. Which is more than I can say for you. I took the folder from my bag and placed it on the bed between us. Read, I said. She didn't move. These are bank statements, I continued. Legal documents. Proof. I never hid anything. She glanced at the folder, then away. Paper can say anything. The words broke my heart. Look at me, I said softly. You know me. She shook her head. I don't think I do. That night, she went to stay at her grandmother's. I let her go. Because sometimes, the truth needs space to breathe. And sometimes, the people who spread lies don't expect the truth to survive without them. The house felt hollow without Emily. Not quiet, hollow. As if the walls themselves were waiting for her footsteps and couldn't understand why they weren't coming. Her room stayed untouched, the bed neatly made, the faint scent of her shampoo lingering in the air. I avoided going in there, afraid that if I stayed too long, I might lose whatever fragile resolve I had left. She stayed with Margaret for nearly 3 weeks. 3 weeks of unanswered texts. 3 weeks of hearing about my own daughter secondhand, from David, from his sister, from carefully worded messages that said nothing and implied everything. She needs space, David told me. You should respect that. I am respecting it, I replied. But you're letting someone turn her against me. He sighed. Margaret's just old-fashioned. She means well. That phrase, means well, became a knife in my chest. One evening, my phone rang while I was washing dishes. Margaret's name lit up the screen. I dried my hands slowly before answering. Yes, I said. Emily is upset, she said without greeting. She says you're trying to manipulate her. I closed my eyes. I showed her the truth. You showed her your version, Margaret replied. You should stop pushing. You'll only drive her further away. I thought of Emily as a toddler, crying because she didn't want to wear her coat in the snow. I'd knelt in front of her, explaining patiently why warmth mattered, even when she didn't understand. This is my daughter, I said. Not a chess piece. Margaret's voice hardened. Then act like it. The line went dead. That night, I did something I'd been avoiding. I wrote Emily a letter. Not a text. Not an email. A real letter, written by hand, each word chosen carefully. I didn't accuse. I didn't defend. I told her my story, from my own perspective, without bitterness. I told her how much I loved her, how proud I was, how I'd never intentionally hurt her. I folded the letter and slipped it into an envelope, my hands trembling. Then I did something else. I included copies of the documents. Not all of them. Just enough. I mailed it the next morning. The waiting was unbearable. Days passed. Then a week. I went back to work, forcing myself into routine. Patients chatted. Phones rang. Life went on in the world, indifferent to my heartbreak. Then, one afternoon, my phone buzzed. A message from Emily. "Can we talk?" My heart leapt painfully. "Of course," I replied. "Anytime." We met at a park near Margaret's house. Emily sat on a bench, her hands tucked into the sleeves of her sweater. She looked older somehow, tired in a way that worried me. "I read your letter," she said quietly. I nodded. "Thank you." She swallowed. "Grandma says you're very convincing." I flinched, but stayed silent. She also said, Emily continued, that you made her father feel useless. That you always thought you were better than him. Tears pricked my eyes. "Did I ever make you feel that way?" She hesitated. "No." "That matters," I said softly. We sat in silence for a moment, the sound of children playing nearby filling the space. "She showed me things," Emily said finally. "Stories. Memories." She said she was just helping me understand. I looked at her, really looked. "And how did it make you feel?" She stared at the ground. Angry. Confused. Like I had to choose sides. I reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wanted. She didn't. "I never wanted that," I said. "I never wanted you in the middle." Her eyes filled with tears. "Then why does everyone keep putting me there?" That question broke something open between us. Over the next few days, we talked more. Carefully. Slowly. I answered her questions honestly, even when the answers hurt. I didn't ask her to cut off her grandmother. I didn't demand loyalty. I let the truth speak for itself. Margaret, however, did not take this well. She called David. She called his sister. She told anyone who would listen that I was manipulating Emily, turning her against family. But this time, the consequences didn't fall on me. Emily confronted her. I wasn't there, but I heard about it later in Emily's halting words. She told me you were unstable, Emily said one evening, sitting at my kitchen table again. I asked her why she never told me you paid off Dad's debts. She said it wasn't important. Emily's voice shook. It was important to me. Margaret didn't apologize. She doubled down. And in doing so, she lost something she never thought she could. Emily's trust. Emily moved back home the following week. The first morning she called me Mom again. She said it quietly, almost like she was afraid the word might shatter. I turned, my heart in my throat. Yes, I replied. She smiled, small and uncertain. And in that moment, I knew the worst was over. But healing, I'd learned, doesn't end with reunion. It begins there. Emily's return didn't magically fix everything. If anything, it made the quiet louder. She moved through the house cautiously, like someone returning to a place that had burned once and might again. She kept her bedroom door open at night, a small but meaningful shift. Sometimes she lingered in the kitchen while I cooked, not talking, just being there. The sound of her presence became something I treasured. But there were still moments when I caught her watching me, her eyes searching my face as if comparing what she saw now with the version she'd been taught to believe. Trust, I realized, doesn't snap back into place. It has to be rebuilt, carefully, honestly, piece by piece. One evening, as we folded laundry together, Emily spoke without looking up. She told me you cried a lot after the divorce, she said. I paused, a towel half folded in my hands. I did. She said it was because you regretted pushing Dad away. I finished folding the towel and set it down. I cried because I was grieving, I said. Even when something is necessary, it can still hurt. Emily nodded slowly. She never explained it like that. Margaret, on the other hand, was not adjusting. She began showing up unannounced, first at David's, then at my doorstep. I didn't answer the door the first time, or the second. By the third, I knew avoiding her wouldn't solve anything. I opened the door, keeping the chain on. This has gone far enough, she said, her eyes sharp. You've turned my granddaughter against me. I didn't turn her against anyone, I replied. I told the truth. You always think you're right, she snapped. No, I said quietly. I think my daughter deserves honesty. Her mouth tightened. You've always been good with words. I met her gaze. And you've always been good at control." She stared at me for a long moment, then turned and walked away without another word. That was the last time she came to my house. David called later that night. "She's devastated," he said. "You didn't have to be so harsh." "I wasn't harsh," I replied. "I was clear." He sighed. "She's my mother. And Emily is my daughter," I said. "And she was hurt." Silence stretched between us. "I never meant for this to happen," he said finally. "I know," I replied. And I did. In his own way, David had been just as manipulated, fed a version of events that suited someone else's need for control. Emily eventually decided to talk to a counselor. It was her idea. I sat in the waiting room during her first appointment, my hands clasped tightly in my lap, staring at the neutral artwork on the walls. When she came out, her eyes were red, but lighter somehow. "She says I'm allowed to love everyone without agreeing with them," Emily told me. "That I don't have to carry other people's anger." I smiled, relief washing over me. She's right. Over time, Margaret's influence faded, not entirely, but enough. Emily still saw her occasionally, but with boundaries. Questions were asked now. Stories were weighed instead of swallowed whole. One afternoon, Emily found the note again, the one that had started everything. "You deserve to know the truth." She held it between her fingers, her expression thoughtful. "She really thought she was helping me," Emily said. "Sometimes people confuse control with care," I replied. Emily nodded. "I won't." The day she started calling me mom again in front of other people, the grocery store cashier, her friend's mother, I felt something settle in my chest. Not triumph. Not victory. Peace. Months later, at a school event, Margaret approached us. Her hair had gone grayer, her posture less rigid. "Emily," she said carefully. "You look well." "Thank you," Emily replied, polite but reserved. Margaret glanced at me, then back at Emily. "I hope you know I always loved you." Emily held her gaze. "I know. But love shouldn't make people feel like they have to choose." Margaret nodded slowly, as if the words weighed something down inside her. We left shortly after. In the car, Emily reached for my hand. "I'm glad you didn't give up on me," she said. "I never would," I replied. And I meant it. Because motherhood isn't about being believed all the time. It's about staying steady, honest, present, until the truth has room to breathe. Life didn't return to what it was before. It became something quieter, more intentional. Emily and I developed a rhythm that felt earned, not assumed. On Sunday mornings, we started walking to the small cafe at the corner of Maple Street. She ordered hot chocolate even when it was warm outside. I ordered black coffee, though I always added too much sugar. We talked about ordinary things, school projects, books she was reading, how the barista always misspelled her name. But beneath the ordinary, there was something deeper happening. One afternoon, while we sat at the park watching leaves drift down from the trees, Emily asked, "Did it hurt when Grandma didn't believe you?" I thought about it carefully before answering. "Yes," I said, "but not as much as it hurt when you didn't." She nodded, her eyes fixed on the ground. "I'm sorry." I reached over and squeezed her hand. We both learned something. That matters more than blame. At school, Emily's counselor suggested a joint session. I agreed, though the idea made me nervous. Sitting across from her in that small room, answering questions about our relationship, felt like laying my heart out on a table. "What do you need from your mom right now?" the counselor asked Emily. Emily glanced at me. "Honesty," she said, "even when it's uncomfortable." "And what do you need from Emily?" the counselor asked me. I didn't hesitate. "Time." Emily smiled faintly. "I can do that." David noticed the change too. "She seems calmer," he said during one of our exchanges. "More grounded." "She's learning to trust her instincts," I replied. He hesitated. I should have stepped in sooner. "Yes," I said gently. "But we're here now." Margaret stopped calling after that school event. Months passed. Then, one day, a card arrived in the mail. No return address. Inside, written in familiar, careful handwriting, were just a few words. "I hope one day you can forgive me." I didn't show it to Emily right away. I sat with it for a long time, turning it over in my hands. Forgiveness, I'd learned, isn't something you rush. It's something you grow into or don't. Eventually, I told Emily about the card. "What do you think?" she asked. "I think forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting," I said. "And it doesn't mean reopening doors that aren't safe." She nodded thoughtfully. "That makes sense." As the year turned, Emily turned 16. We celebrated quietly, just the two of us, a homemade cake slightly lopsided but full of love. When she blew out the candles, she didn't wish out loud. Later that night, as we cleaned up frosting from the counter, she said, "I used to think calling you Linda made me stronger." "And now?" I asked. "And now I know strength is asking questions," she replied. "And listening." I smiled, my eyes burning with unshed tears. Sometimes, late at night, I still thought about those weeks she was gone. About the way lies can wear the shape of concern. About how easily love can be twisted when someone believes they know what's best for others. But mostly, I thought about resilience. About how truth doesn't need volume, just patience. About how being a mother isn't about being perfect or untouchable. It's about being real enough for your child to find their way back to you. Emily still rolls her eyes at me sometimes. Still forgets to text when she's late. Still tests boundaries the way all teenagers do. But when she hugs me now, she holds on just a second longer. And every time she says, "Mom," it sounds like home again. There are moments in life when silence feels safer than truth. When keeping the peace seems kinder than asking the hard questions. When love convinces us that staying quiet will somehow protect the people we care about most. But silence has a way of creating space for other voices to step in. Voices that sound gentle, familiar, well-intentioned. And sometimes, those voices don't tell lies outright. They tell partial truths, carefully framed memories. Emotional versions of events that lean just enough to change how someone feels, especially a child still learning how to understand the world. What I learned is this: betrayal doesn't always come from enemies. Sometimes it comes from family, from people who truly believe they are doing the right thing. But love that controls is not love that heals. When my daughter stopped calling me mom, it nearly broke me. Not because of the word, but because of what it represented. A fracture in trust. A story being written about me without my voice. I wanted to fight, to expose, to prove. Instead, I chose patience. I chose truth spoken calmly, consistently, without poison, without urgency. And in time, the truth stood on its own. If you are a parent being misunderstood, stay steady. If you are a child caught between loyalties, ask questions. If you are a family member who believes you know best, remember this. Love should never demand allegiance at the cost of honesty. And trust, once broken, can only be rebuilt by those brave enough to face the truth, even when it hurts. Because in the end, the loudest voice isn't the one that convinces. It's the one that stays.